So Saddam Hussein asks Ambassador April Glaspie for a meeting, the U.S. ambassador. Ambassador Glaspie shows up, she sits down. There's actually a recording of this. It's really, really grainy. It's terrible quality. And you can hardly tell what's going on, and you can hardly tell what's being said, but there's a transcript of what was said. And in a nutshell, Saddam Hussein says, Kuwait is stealing our oil. The UN confirmed it. Here's the evidence. And Ambassador Glaspie goes, yes, the United States believes Kuwait is in the wrong on this. Saddam Hussein goes, I don't know what to do. They're undermining our economy. We can't get back on our feet. We've tried diplomatic avenues. They're non-responsive. And she goes, again, the United States believes Iraq is in the right here. He says, Iraq is going to have to do something about it. She says, the United States is unconcerned with what Arab states do to Arab states. He interpreted that conversation as, go ahead and invade Kuwait, we're okay with it. And he does. In August 1990, the Iraqi military enters into Kuwait. The battle takes 24 hours, making it not the shortest war or about war. Technically it's a war, right? It's just a 24-hour war. It's not technically the shortest war. The shortest war was when Germany invaded Denmark in World War II. That took 2 hours. And the casualties were even lower than the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. One guy died and an armored car was destroyed in the Denmark event. In the case of Kuwait, the reason it took 24 hours and it didn't take 2 was it took that long for the Kuwaiti military to retreat into Saudi Arabia as the Republican Guard systematically moved into Kuwait. Saddam Hussein sent his elite Republican Guard. They were battle-hardened troops who had seen hell on earth fighting in Iran. These guys were not normal human beings, but they were extremely disciplined. And the reason why you send an extremely disciplined force into a situation like this is because normal troops rape. Normal troops loot. Normal troops break. Disciplined soldiers like this elite unit, they will only do that kind of violence if they are told to. They do what they are told. And that's why he sent in the Republican Guard, because he didn't want there to be looting and breaking and raping. He wanted this to be a very clean, simple move. And it was. George Bush Sr. gets up in front of the world, right? He gave permission to do this through April Glaspie. And he says, Iraq invaded Kuwait. I don't see any problem with it at this moment. I'm going to look into it more. Margaret Thatcher calls the president up and goes, let's meet in Aspen. They fly to Aspen, Colorado. They spend 2 days together. They come out of a meeting, and George Bush Sr. gets up in front of the world and he goes, Saddam Hussein's a Hitler. He's a Hitler. And I kept wanting to say, he's not. He's a Hussein. It's a different name. It's a different name. They both start with H. That's where that ends. He's a Hitler. We have to stop him. What did Margaret Thatcher tell George Bush Sr.? Like, what happened in that conversation? She flipped his position on this. And I can't tell you because it was a private conversation, but I can show you the results of what happens. He announces Operation Desert Storm. We are going to move soldiers into Saudi Arabia with the intent of defending Saudi Arabia against an Iraqi invasion. And then we began Operation Desert Storm, when we began systematically bombing Iraq. We dropped more tonnage of explosives on Iraq in that 5 weeks than were dropped in the entire 8 years of World War II, including the 2 nukes. World War II, you know, the thing that took place in Japan and China and Indonesia and the Philippines and Poland and Germany and France and Italy and Greece and Yugoslavia and Russia and Britain, that big thing. We dropped more tonnage of TNT on Iraq in that 5 weeks than in 8 years in all those countries combined, including the 2 nukes. We blew up their hospitals. We blew up their police stations. We blew up their bridges in a country that's two big rivers running down. It was a mess. We smashed that place to pieces. We blew up their pharmaceutical production facilities. We blew up their baby formula production facilities. We actually were experimenting with bunker busters and launching bunker busters into the ground to take out civilian bunkers, not just military bunkers. And we were killing civilians who were underground in military-grade civilian bunkers that we almost certainly knew were civilian bunkers and not military bunkers. And then we did the ground invasion. The ground invasion did not take long. If I remember correctly, it was 5 days. It was a really short event. We went in, we got to Basra, and then we pulled out. And in fact, one of the weird things was, on the day the ground invasion started, Saddam Hussein surrendered. He got up in front of the world, he said, we surrender, we surrender. We surrender claim to Kuwait, we're letting it go again, we don't want to fight, we quit. George Bush Sr. said no. It's too late for that, you should have surrendered a long time ago. He then went to Mikhail Gorbachev, the president of the Soviet Union, and he said, please tell the President of the United States we surrender. Please act on our behalf to negotiate our surrender. We're done. We surrender. And Gorbachev sent a memo to George Bush Sr. saying, hey, the Iraqis surrender. There's no reason to do the ground invasion. And Bush said no. Saddam Hussein asked Gorbachev to do it again. He did it a second time, and we went in. Saddam Hussein ordered all the military personnel in Kuwait to evacuate by any means available. They literally grabbed every truck, bus, car, pickup truck they could, and they took off down the Basra, Kuwait highway, trying to drive away as fast as they could. So what we did was we came in, I believe primarily with A-10s, but I could be wrong about that. We came in with aircraft and we dropped incendiary bombs all up and down that highway, and we burned the retreating army to death. There was burnt corpses everywhere. A photographer decided that he would go and photograph it. So there's plenty of photographic evidence. If you're into really morbid pictures, they're great. In the meantime, Saddam Hussein then went ahead and set the oil fields on fire. And so now there's all this toxin being dumped into the atmosphere as the oil fields go up. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we used depleted uranium shells to take out Iraqi armor. The Department of Defense in the 80s issued a warning saying that we should not use depleted uranium shells on a battlefield where we had soldiers on it. And we totally did in that first war. In any case, we do know that the depleted uranium is going to have an effect, because after we leave Iraq, the rates of cancer, especially in the southern part of Iraq, go through the roof. Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, ends up in southern Iraq doing volunteer work, and one of the things they keep reporting over and over again is 9-year-old girls with breast cancer. And that was a real problem because we did not allow Iraq to import medicine or food. We cut Iraq off from the rest of the world. And this goes on from 1992 to 1998. 6 years, Iraq has had its food and its medicine cut off. The population of Iraq is in serious trouble. They're having immune system problems because of all the depleted uranium we dumped all over southern Iraq, because we blew up their formula factories, and so kids don't have formula, because we blew up their pharmacies so they don't have medicine. What starts to happen is public pressure starts to build on the United States and Great Britain, because we're the ones enforcing these brutal sanctions, to ease the sanctions. And so we create the Oil for Food program. We will let Iraq sell to us at under market value oil, and then in return we will let them buy limited quantities of things like acetaminophen, which is great for a headache but terrible for breast cancer. You need something a little bit stronger. We would not let them bring in any radiation because we said they might use it to build a dirty bomb or a nuke. So we can't let them bring in anything in so you can do radiation treatment for cancer.